What if the fairy tale wasn't quite what it seemed? Just recently, a single joke from Colin Jost on Saturday Night Live unexpectedly cracked open a conversation about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, setting off a chain reaction that's had everyone talking. Jost didn't hold back, looking straight into the camera and deadpanning a trade deal proposal. American companies. All that Britain demands in return is that we keep these two. The crowd's laughter wasn't just for the joke itself. It hinted at a deeper, unspoken sentiment that no matter how much Meghan tried to polish her image, the internet never truly forgets. The spin-off that stirred the past. It started innocently enough. When NBC announced a Suits spin-off set in Los Angeles, focusing on a character much like Meghan's Rachel Zane, it inadvertently became the trigger for a massive online deep dive. Suddenly, old photos began resurfacing, one in particular showing a woman strikingly similar to Meghan, chilling on a luxury yacht in the early 2010s. No names, no tags, but online detectives quickly connected the dots. The vibe was undeniable: expensive sunglasses, champagne flutes, a crowd of power players and influencers. It certainly didn't look like someone struggling to make it. This sparked a question that rubbed many the wrong way. What if Meghan didn't just randomly end up with Prince Harry? What if it was a calculated ascent, a carefully planned journey into the elite world? This idea directly challenged the fairy tale narrative, making people wonder if their love story was less about luck and more about strategy. The bigger the gap between someone's public image and their perceived reality, the messier things get when that truth starts to slip out. Royal trust on shaky ground. While Meghan's past was being picked apart, her present wasn't much smoother. Just days after the SNL roast, Page Six dropped a bombshell report, citing sources claiming Prince Harry had been effectively shut out by the royal family due to crippling trust issues. Nobody trusts him, and that's the bottom line, an insider revealed. The royal family has major trust issues with him, and that's what's at the heart of everything. It wasn't just Harry. The source claimed Meghan was part of the problem too, stating, "They don't trust him and Meghan, and that's why they can't have a relationship." This stark reality stood in sharp contrast to the couple's carefully curated public image. Before the SNL jab, they were spotted at Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter concert, cozying up for a date night. Meghan had even gushed publicly about Harry, comparing him to Super Mario saving the princess, highlighting their beautiful life and two healthy, beautiful children. Yet, behind the smiles and social media posts, Harry was facing a legal setback, losing his appeal for taxpayer-funded security in the UK, a blow he admitted left him feeling devastated. It's a clear picture of a couple trying to project happiness while their ties to the royal family remain very much fractured, with no signs of mending anytime soon. The manufactured narrative, from empowerment to exposure. The shifting tides of public opinion didn't stop at SNL or royal insiders. When Meghan and Harry inked massive deals with Spotify and Netflix, the narrative began to feel less like sharing an authentic story and more like selling a carefully branded product. The over-the-top branding and cutesy nicknames began to fall flat. Then came the criticism about how they handled royal traditions, like Meghan's dramatic portrayal of a simple curtsy. To many, including outspoken critics like Piers Morgan and countless regular viewers, it felt like an overt attempt to paint themselves as perpetual victims. But the true backlash ignited after that explosive Oprah interview, when Meghan infamously spoke about royal family members' concerns and conversations about how dark his, Archie's, skin might be. That line hit a raw nerve. Comedians, from talk show hosts to Chris Rock, quickly turned Meghan into a target, lampooning the perceived hypocrisy. When Harry's memoir, Spare, dropped, its stiff, overly serious tone only added fuel to the fire, making him seem disconnected and robotic, a prime target for late-night hosts. The real turning point for many, though, was when two individuals living in a mansion with millions from Netflix and Spotify complained about having to pay for their own security. Any lingering public sympathy vanished, replaced by a sense of insult. Comedy's brutal verdict, the animated roasts. The public verdict was in, and comedy didn't hold back. It escalated from stand-up to savage animation, with South Park leading the charge. Trey Parker and Matt Stone dedicated an entire episode, the Worldwide Privacy Tour, to ruthlessly dissecting Harry's memoir and the couple's biggest contradiction, loudly demanding privacy while constantly chasing the spotlight. One brutal scene featured an animated Meghan being called out by a fake interviewer, highlighting the gaping chasm between her public whining and her obvious hunger for attention. Harry, meanwhile, looked utterly clueless, digging himself deeper with every clumsy defense. But the most iconic image was their characters screaming, "We want privacy," into giant megaphones while flying around in a private jet, a perfect, brutal encapsulation of how the public had come to see them: privileged, loud, and completely out of touch. And in the chilling final scene, when they finally find the quiet life they claim to want, they look utterly lost, reinforcing the idea that it was never about privacy. It was always about attention. Family Guy quickly followed suit, delivering sharp, quick jabs about the couple being lazy and greedy, adding to the growing comedic consensus. The deafening silence and the vanishing past. Perhaps the most unsettling element of this unraveling narrative is the silence from unexpected corners. People who once proudly associated with Meghan, former friends, co-stars, stylists, and influencers who posted pictures, tagged her, or mentioned her in interviews, have gone quiet. Some posts have mysteriously disappeared. It's as if someone is desperately trying to clean up a digital footprint. This isn't random. Online theories point to meticulously planned damage control, perhaps even a little desperate. And Meghan herself? Not a word. No statement. No denial. Not even a vague post about false narratives. This is starkly out of character for someone who has clapped back at tabloids and even sued over headlines. In a world where everyone is constantly online, such silence stands out. Many are taking it as a sign that perhaps the rumors aren't so far-fetched. The more this past is dragged up, the more it suggests that her rise wasn't just a messy phase but a calculated ascent. And it leads to a haunting question. If this part turns out to be true, what else has been covered up? The pattern, cracks in the polished image. For many, the initial yacht photo wasn't shocking. It simply confirmed a quiet suspicion they'd held all along, that the perfectly polished Meghan Markle we see today might not be the full picture. The elegant outfits, the speeches on justice and kindness, the humanitarian appearances, it all feels a little too curated, almost manufactured. But now, as old clips and photos crawl back from the internet's depths, the cracks are becoming impossible to ignore. The most scrutinized photo shows a group of prominent influencers and businessmen on a yacht, and right there, a woman strikingly similar to Meghan. The photo itself isn't scandalous, but the context raises eyebrows. The date, the company, the perfect overlap with her pre-royal life. And the most peculiar detail, this picture, like so many others, just quietly vanished years ago without explanation. This inexplicable disappearance only fueled suspicion. Rumors of deleted accounts, suddenly silent former friends, and whispers of NDAs during her rise to royal status began to circulate. It wasn't just posts vanishing, entire digital histories seemed to evaporate. That silence from her former inner circle is deafening, making even longtime fans uneasy. The self-made woman narrative, the one they championed, feels shaky when confronted with all this. Was she truly the underdog, or was there a much larger, carefully orchestrated plan? The credibility breakdown, a public reckoning. The joke by Colin Jost, though brief, did something no press release or lawsuit ever could. It publicly cracked open how people saw Meghan Markle. The audience's laughter wasn't just because it was funny, it was that knowing laugh that signals collective agreement. This perfectly polished royal, who once seemed untouchable, was now a punchline on one of the world's biggest comedy stages. And once late-night shows start joking about you, it stops being mere online gossip. It becomes mainstream. Major news outlets, not just tabloids, began using terms like unanswered questions, mysterious deletions, and digital cleanup. Even media normally sympathetic to Meghan started hinting that her silence was doing more harm than good. But what truly pushed it into overdrive were regular people. Not paparazzi, just individuals with time, face-matching tools, old Instagram screenshots, and a burning curiosity. What they found wasn't one massive scandal, but something far more powerful, a consistent pattern. Yacht photos aligned with old social media posts, guest lists matched known connections, and entire web pages were simply gone. It was a collection of small pieces that formed a solid, troubling picture. When people around her, Co-stars who once praised her, stylists, influencers, old friends, suddenly act like she doesn't exist. It usually means there's something they don't want to say out loud. When someone builds their entire image on transparency but only appears in perfectly edited content and controlled appearances, people notice. Meghan's narrative was supposed to be about resilience, change, and progress. Instead, she's becoming an example of how aggressively managing your image can completely backfire. Not because she had a past, everyone does, but because she keeps pretending it never existed. And when it comes to public trust, that's the one thing people usually can't get past. What do you think the shifting narrative means for her future?